Hi, Andrea here. I just wanted to make a quick video of how the symptoms occur at first and then what perpetuates them, because those are two different things and it's really helpful to keep in mind how they differ. Um, Once you really understand this, once you really understand what perpetuates symptoms like deep down, then it's so much easier to do the work and to go through dips and everything else that this illness throws at you. So here's how it starts. You have an initial stressor, and this could be a long line of stressors, like maybe your whole life was a little bit off and then you got a virus at the end, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and then this was the thing, right? Or maybe your initial stressor was really big, like everything else in your life was pretty much fine, but then the initial stressor was the one that totally overwhelmed your system. Regardless of how it went down, there was that last thing, or the last few years of things that made this happen. And what happened was there was a nervous system dysregulation, and your brain sensed danger. For some people, the initial stressor is a physical one, like an injury or a virus. For others, it's a purely psychological stressor, like a divorce or a death of a loved one, or what have you. In both cases, for the brain, there isn't that much difference. The brain senses danger, whether it's emotional danger or a physical one. And the nervous system responds to that. And normally, what we would want is that uh, after the danger has passed, the nervous system then returns into its normal way of operation, right? So it's flexible, it can flexibly move through states. But in some cases, like in cases of people who then go on to develop chronic symptoms, that doesn't happen. It remains stuck. And in the beginning, if you look here at the far right, you will see I wrote acute symptoms because in the beginning, uh, the symptoms have, just started. They're acute. They might be a bit different than they will be a year down or a few years down the road. Oh, yeah, and I forgot that this piece of trauma in the lower left, um, that can be a predisposing factor that makes it so that some people get hit harder by the initial stressor than the others. But in reality, nobody really knows who will develop chronic symptoms and who will not. Well, not upfront, not straight away, though there have been some interesting developments in this area as well. Anyway, so this is our beginning thing. And this is how it becomes chronic. So when it becomes chronic, the initial stressor is not there anymore, and it's not important anymore because the whole thing has become a self-perpetuating cycle. It doesn't need the initial stressor anymore to keep it going. Whatever the initial stressor was for you, if it was a virus or emotional stressor or whatever else, it's not important at this stage anymore. It only matters possibly in those beginning stages of acute symptoms. But now, years down the road, not important. Trauma still matters because trauma is still sending danger signals to the brain, or is like the brain is more likely to sense danger because of the trauma in the past. So that still matters. And of course, we have nervous system dysregulation still, and brain sensing danger. And what's interesting is that these two actually feed one another. When brain senses danger, that creates nervous system dysregulation. And when brain senses nervous system dysregulation, it also interprets that as danger, as a sign of danger. So you have like a mini self-perpetuating cycle over here. But this one is more important. So both nervous system dysregulation and brain sense, and the fact that brain senses danger will create chronic symptoms, which you know very well. But what really interesting happens after this is that of course, we assign some meaning to those symptoms. The meaning can be, this is horrible. That's an assessment, right? I can't live like this. That's an assessment. The fact that I have this symptom now means that I will never get better. That's a meaning we created. The fact that, after I did that activity and then symptoms got worse, that means that that activity was bad. That's a meaning we created. Or the fact that I feel this symptom right now, that probably means that that virus is still in my system or whatever. That is a meaning that we created. And these meanings, which are, for the most part, until we learn how to change them, they are doomsday meanings. They're all bad. And they create their own form of stress. And this form of stress is sending, like the brain is sensing it as a danger signal. Again, and brain senses danger signal, which causes nervous system dysregulation. Both nervous system dysregulation and the fact that brain senses danger create more chronic symptoms. And this is why the symptoms cannot go away for as long as we perpetuate this, creating horrible meaning, right? For some people, they get lucky and the symptoms are mild enough that the meaning they're creating is less and less horrible and doomsday making by itself, and it works well enough that the chronic symptoms get less, and again the people create less stressful meaning, and so on. Some other people, though, even though the symptoms might be less, they will still create very stressful meaning out of it. For example, when I was recovering and I was started to get much better suddenly, I got this thought, maybe now I will crash. And this is a doomsday meaning that got created not because there would be a ton of symptoms, but just because I was remembering how it used to be in the past, right? And this sort of thing, this doomsday thinking, is sending a danger signal to the brain, which perpetuates symptoms. Another thing that perpetuates symptoms is normal life stress that we have. Some of it can be avoided, some of it is unavoidable, but it is extremely important that we lower it to the minimal amount that we are able to, right? Like whatever you cannot do, that's fine. But since life stress will also send signals of danger, it will also perpetuate chronic symptoms. I love this from Alan Gordon, from his book, The Way Out. He explains this loop that I just explained to you. He explains it like this. This is called a feedback loop, in which a behavior and the response to that behavior can create a never-ending cycle. pain and fear can get locked in a similar feedback loop, which causes neuroplastic pain to become chronic. He is talking about pain in this book, but it is the same way with any mind-body symptom. So whatever your most prominent symptom is, just replace the word pain with your symptom here. Here's how it happens. Pain triggers feelings of fear, naturally. Then the fear puts the brain on high alert, creates that danger signal, right? Which causes more pain. And that leads to more fear. And that leads to more pain. Now, we don't always get in such a bad cycle that our symptoms would get worse and worse, but they can get perpetuated in this way. So they won't get better until we break this cycle. But it's not just fear that's creating this. Here's how Alan explains it. Many of my patients immediately relate to the concept of fear. They feel scared of their pain and they're eager to explore that dynamic. I've had other patients who didn't identify with the word fear, not because they didn't have fear, but because they called it something else. One patient said it wasn't really fear she felt around her pain, but frustration. Have you ever been frustrated with your symptoms? I know I have. Another patient said he mostly felt despair. Right? I know many people, myself included, who feel that. These feelings may seem like they're different from fear, but they fall under the same umbrella. And here's the really important part. When I discuss emotions with my patients, I ask a simple question. Does this feeling make your brain feel more danger or less danger? If the answer is more danger, then it's a form of fear. In my words, in the words that I used on the previous slide, then this is a form of a danger signal for the brain. So when I talk about fear of the pain, I'm including frustration, despair, stress, anguish, anxiety, annoyance, dismay, and anything else that puts you on high alert. Anything else, in my own words, that doesn't feel like I can handle this, I am on the right track. I might not be symptom-free today, but I am on the right track. And this is doable and I can handle it. And I'm guessing that most likely what you just heard from me feels very foreign to you. This is not the way that you're speaking to yourself. I can handle this and this is doable. And it's really important to realize that the fact that you are not speaking that way to yourself is this part, the lower right part of the perpetuating cycle. This is what is keeping a portion of the symptoms going. I'm sure this is not all the stress in your life. I'm sure there are other sources of stress, but this is a big one. And it's entirely within your control. Some of life stress is not within control, not within your control. Some is, and I advise you to take care of the part that is. But this, the meaning making, and what we're saying to ourselves, this is, and what we decide to believe, whether we decide to believe the parts of us that are telling us the doomsday predictions, or whether we're deciding to believe the parts of us that are telling us that we are strong, we are capable, and we will find our way out of this. And that the symptoms are not anymore connected to the initial event that started them, but that they are now completely within our control to unravel them. This is your decision how you meet this. And it's incredibly important that you take this into your hands and make it so that this perpetuating cycle will stop spinning.